Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Here's a new headline of an article from CNBC. Nearly 70% of Americans, yes, you heard that right, nearly 70% of our fellow Americans are worried about a nuclear attack, according to a survey by the American Psychological Association. In fact, let's show you the survey on your screen. March 12th marks the second anniversary of the pandemic, okay? And what people are concerned about is a big nuclear attack. Yes, folks, let's take a look at this. The number of people who say that the following are a significant source of stress. 87% said that a rise in prices of everyday items due to inflation, gas, energy, groceries is a source of stress. 81% said supply chain issues are a source of stress. 81% said global uncertainty is a source of stress. 80% said that retaliation from Russia, cyber attacks, and nuclear warfare was a source of stress. And 80% said that the Russian invasion of Ukraine was a source of stress. Pretty astonishing numbers here. That actually tells you that essentially we're not happy, we're not healthy as a country mentally because of all this stress that is making its way through the world. In fact, as Russia invaded Ukraine, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said this on the 14th of March. The prospect of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, is now back within the realm of possibility. Nearly 70% of Americans surveyed by the American Psychological Association said that they are worried that the invasion of Ukraine is going to lead to nuclear war and that they fear that we are at the beginning stages of World War III. In fact, what could happen in the unlikely event of a nuclear attack? Let's take a look at a segment from a CNBC report. Let's watch.
Researchers estimate that there are approximately 12,700 nuclear weapons around the world, spread across 9 different countries: the United States, Russia, France, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea. The U.S. and Russia hold the majority. As of 2022, the U.S. has more than 5,400 nuclear weapons, while Russia has close to 6,000.
The total explosive power of all the nuclear weapons today is so large that if you took a Hiroshima bomb and dropped it every 2 hours, 12 times a day, every day, starting in 1945 on August 6th, up till today, you still couldn't use up our current arsenal in terms of its explosive power.
Even the use of one single nuclear weapon would already have devastating humanitarian consequences.
Researchers, academics, and advocacy groups have written reports detailing what a hypothetical attack could look like.
There would be blast, there would be radioactivity, and there would be fires. And those would be horrific and horrible direct effects on the people where the bombs would be dropped.
In 2014, the Dutch peace organization PAX put together a report examining what would happen if a nuclear bomb exploded in a cargo ship in the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where PAX is based. Susie Snyder was one of the authors of that report.
And we took it at the least impactful way it could explode, which is at the ground level. It's not dropped from the air. So it minimizes fallout, it minimizes blast.
8,000 people dying immediately who would find themselves within 1 kilometer of distance, others suffering from severe burns and other injuries. And then there's, of course, the radiation, which over the course of a few days would result in the death of another estimated 60,000 people, and double that amount would maybe survive, but it would have lasting health consequences.
Yes, folks. In fact, researchers estimate that there are approximately 12,700 nuclear weapons spread between 9 countries, with the United States and Russia having the majority of nuclear weapons. Let's take a look at this image on your screen that shows you the estimated global nuclear warhead inventories, and you can see that Russia is number 1, followed by United States, and all the other countries have less than a tenth of nuclear warheads compared to United States and Russia. Just blows my mind that Russia has almost 6,000 nuclear warheads and China has 350. We're talking about 5 or 6% what Russia has. In fact, a lot of researchers and government officials feel that a nuclear attack is unlikely. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said this on the 28th of February. We are assessing President Putin's directive, and at this time, we see no reason to change our own alert levels. But still, folks, things can go wrong. Let's take a look at another segment from CNBC that explains what could happen and what we need to know in the unlikely event of a nuclear attack. Let's watch.
There's a paradox when it comes to nuclear deterrence. Nuclear deterrence works only if an adversary believes that you might actually execute a nuclear attack if you are attacked first. So the US government and other governments practice nuclear war all the time so that we are confident that we could retaliate if necessary. That creates an inherent tension because adversaries don't know whether we would only use nuclear weapons in retaliation or whether we might use them first.
The theory of mutually assured destruction has been around for almost as long as nuclear weapons have. And we have been at risk of nuclear war for as long as nuclear weapons have been around.
There have been many efforts to create international agreements in order to reduce risk. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons was an international initiative first launched in 1968 by the United Nations. Its goal is to work toward a world without nuclear weapons. A total of 191 states have joined the treaty, including 5 nuclear weapon states.
States agreed to negotiate nuclear disarmament and would also work toward reducing their nuclear arsenals. But that's not happening. On the contrary, actually, all nuclear armed states are continuing to modernize their nuclear arsenals also and spending a lot of money on it as well.
The U.S. and Russia also signed a separate agreement in 2010 called the New START Treaty.
It's a treaty that's still in force today. And in fact, that is the only treaty right now that regulates and limits U.S. and Russian nuclear forces. 18 times a year, United States inspectors go to Russian territory and literally look at their strategic nuclear weapons and vice versa. Now, these inspections have been paused because of COVID, but not because of the political situation. And in fact, I think that the inspections will be resuming soon. And there are other means of verification provided for in the treaty, including we send each other notifications every time a delivery vehicle, a plane, a sub, an ICBM that's mobile, if it leaves the place where it normally is, we send an instant notification to Russia. So we have complete pictures at all times of where each side's nuclear weapons are.
I personally would like to see the United States move towards a no first use policy. I just think this is not the time to be doing that right now, given this particular crisis.
Now, let's be clear, no one wants a nuclear confrontation. Here's a quote from Alejandra Munoz, a project officer at the Dutch peace organization PAX. As long as these weapons are around, the possibility will always be there that they will actually be used. Now, folks, in the end, we need risk reduction and we need companies to say, hey, we don't want these warheads. We want to actually do away with these warheads, but we have to examine what a hypothetical attack could look like and the long-term impact it could have on our planet and society. Let's take a look at this segment from CNBC that helps us understand what could happen in the astonishing, in the scary, in the unlikely event of a nuclear confrontation. Let's watch.
The plans I've seen in the US, the FEMA plans, are you isolate the center, the very center of the explosion. You don't allow emergency services in there, and that's just it. You hope people can help each other, pull each other out of rubble, and you triage around that, where you can have more services in broader concentric circles the further out. But because that fireball also sets everything on fire and goes out from there, a firestorm might erupt.
Beyond the immediate catastrophe, a nuclear attack would have a serious long-term impact on the planet. A 2014 report from the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons concluded that a nuclear blast anywhere could lead to the collapse of public services infrastructures, which would disrupt the entire economy, including communication networks and food supplies.
If there was a nuclear war, bombs would be dropped on cities and industrial areas, which would burn, and the fires would produce smoke, which would be pumped up into the atmosphere. And a lot of it would get up into the stratosphere where there's no rain to wash it out. And so the amount of climate change we would get would depend on how much smoke there would be. Once our food supplies ran out, if we couldn't grow any more food, there would be famine. And so many more people could die in the rest of the world. For example, if there was a war between the US and Russia, more people in China could die from starvation than in the US and Russia combined.
Survival is going to become the number one most important thing that we will have left if we ever do see a full-blown nuclear war.
If the U.S. or an ally nation were attacked with a nuclear weapon, there's a chance the U.S. would respond with a nuclear attack of its own. The Defense Department runs exercises to try to simulate various military scenarios in order to practice how it would respond. These exercises are called war games.
War games are used by academics, by people in government to basically lay out a scenario that could happen and go through it step by step to see how things might play out.
Sometimes these war games simulate a nuclear attack on either the US or one of its allies. In February 2020, the Pentagon disclosed it had conducted a military exercise which simulated what it called a limited nuclear exchange with Russia. According to a senior Defense Department official, this exercise featured a hypothetical scenario where Russia attacked a NATO territory in Europe. The military personnel undergoing the exercise decided to respond with a nuclear weapon. But these war games don't always end in a nuclear response from the US.
So that's it, everyone. Listen, I don't mean to scare anyone, but I do want our viewers and subscribers to know what lies ahead in the world, and I want you to be prepared. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will always tell you the truth, wherever the truth might lead us. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.